Wham. All right, all right. I think I'm finally ready. Sorry, team. So game on then. Sound good? Somebody say yeah in the chat if we're good to go, because I think
Yeah, you're good to go.
Cool. All right. So sorry about that. I've got an unfortunate lighting situation here as well, so I've got a lamp right in my face. So hopefully you can see me all right. My name's Derek. I am with Microsoft now. I was formerly of More Good Ideas. And one of the tools that I did when I was at MGI was the MGI Solution Explorer. And I've given presentations at CLA summits and NI weeks and all that kind of stuff about it. And so this year, or for the GLA summit here, decided to go for the MGI Solution Explorer from the eyes of a kind of a CI integration situation. So first thing we're going to go through here is what the Solution Explorer does. And so if you've seen some of my presentations before, you've used Solution Explorer, you'll probably know a bunch of this stuff, but it's important to go through. Hopefully you'll see something a little bit new. So new with, I think, the first version of 2020 is Solution Explorer actually ships with LabVIEW now. So when you're installing LabVIEW, you can hit the button, the checkbox there in this additional items, and install Solution Explorer, and that gets you everything that you need to get going. If you want to subscribe to the NIPM feeds, you can use these here, and these will get you kind of faster updates. Registering for NIPM feeds is a pretty easy thing. There's a link in this presentation, which obviously you'll be able to get a copy of. Shows you how to do that sort of stuff. So download and install MGI Solution Explorer via one of those links. All right. So once you've got Solution Explorer, what does it do? It is basically a way to group a bunch of different LabVIEW projects together and give you a really convenient way to build with kind of one button builds. So this is definitely coming from the world of PPLs, where if you've ever used a PPL, you essentially have to build like the lowest level component first, and then the next to lowest level component, and then the next to lowest level component. And each one of those things is a separate LabVIEW project. And after you get past about 4 PPLs, it gets into this very frustrating situation. So when I wrote the Solution Explorer, I was working on a project that had like, I don't know, it had on the order of like 200 PPLs by the time we were done. And so, did I open it? Yeah. So I didn't want to play that game over and over again. So essentially, when you open up a blank solution here, you get that window here, and you can just kind of drag LabVIEW projects into it. And when you drag them in there, and you can reorder them as necessary, it just kind of writes all that. It's like writing that stuff down, and then it gives you, and then when you hit the build button, it's going to go into project A here, and it's going to build PPL1. It's going to go into project B here, and it's going to build project B. Let me just close that new one. I'll open up the sample solution that I've got for the presentation here. So now when I need to go and build this stuff, I can just hit this build button up here, and it's going to talk to LabVIEW, and it's going to open up all the projects. It's going to do all the stuff in the background that it needs to do, and it's building a PPL there, and then it's going to build an application and a package for me. So you can imagine in a situation where we had 200 PPLs, that made the building situation a lot nicer. So other things that it helps you do is, so I just went ahead and I built these files. We're just building that last package now. So there's actually a little bit of checksumming that's happening in the background. So if I hit build again, it does some checksumming and realizes that, hey, you actually didn't change anything in project A, so I don't actually need to build it. I'll just go ahead and skip it. And it should do the same thing with B. And wham. So in the situation where you have, 15 PPLs or something like that, and you change one of them, it will, if you change like a medium level one, it will not rebuild the low level ones. It will rebuild the medium level and higher ones. And same sort of thing. So it uses some checksumming in the background to kind of keep track of all of those sorts of things, and only build what it needs to do. In our CI context, that doesn't matter as much, but while you're developing, you'll be able to use that. The other nice thing that does is I can double click on this and it just opens up LabVIEW and opens up the project in LabVIEW. It knows what version of LabVIEW each of these projects is in. So if you had some that were in like 2017, some are in 2020, whatever, when you double click on them, it opens the appropriate version of LabVIEW for you. You can right click on these things and hit configure. And if you wanted to do this in 64-bit, you could check that 64-bit checkbox there. And when you double click on it, or when you do the builds, it does that all in 64-bit LabVIEW instead of 32. Yeah, so that's building projects. The next thing that the Solution Explorer does is it's actually a plugin architecture in the background. And each of these things is just a solution item. And so we can add any arbitrary amount of solution items. Sorry, team. So yeah, so we can add any solution items, and we can implement our own plugin. So if your company has some sort of task that they do all the time in builds or whatever, and you wanted to write a Solution Explorer plugin to do that, you could do that. But by default, it ships with these other ones. So LabVIEW project is the one that I showed you. Package feed adds a package that you just built to a feed. Run VI will just, you give it a VI path and it'll just run that VI. So you could build, project 1, run a VI, and then build project 2. Self-extracting zip is pretty cool. What that does is it creates a SFX exe for you. So normally, like an installer, right, it has like a whole pile of files. You can create a Solution Explorer item that zips all those files up into an exe, and you give it to your customer. They just double click on it and it runs through the whole install. It does the extract and then runs the install for you. Shell command just runs like you opened up command prompt. And then solution lets you nest a solution in another solution. So in the example that I was talking about earlier, where we had 200, we had those PPLs, we had those split up into maybe 10 different solutions. And it was a solution in a solution situation. So when you hit build on that, it just kind of like linearizes that whole tree situation and runs through the stuff in the appropriate order. Each one of those has like a config screen like this that you'll be able to go in and set up all the different things. So here's my SFX. You can specify what the SFX file gets named, all of those sorts of things. All right, so I'm going to discard the changes for that. All right, boom, solution items. Version numbering. I don't know if I've actually presented on the version numbering stuff because this is a sort of newer feature. So up here now we've got the version number specifier. So you can go in and you can increment and decrement or do whatever you want to all those version numbers. And when you hit build, it's going to apply those version numbers as much as it can to all of the nested components. So like the PPL is going to get the version number, the application is going to get the version number, and the package itself is going to get the version number. And it's going to do that for all of the things. So I like that because when you do your builds, it's annoying to have to remember to increment each of the little version numbers here and there. I find it much nicer that when everybody or everything that gets built at the same time gets the same version number. This version number is saved is saved in the solution file itself. So like if I change this and I hit save, when I do a check into source code control, it's going to save that. And then, you know, when somebody does a pull on source code control, they're going to get the new version number here. So Peter in the comments here says, from the top, or as in we set on each solution. I don't understand what you're asking. Can you reword that maybe? Okay. And then the last thing that is also somewhat new is, it can be set to individual, but if you have nested solutions, it can be set. If it's nested, so I'm pretty sure the nested thing applies all the way down through all the nested ones, but I honestly don't remember. It's been a while since I looked at that functionality. Yeah, but I would guess that the top, sorry, I should have a better answer, but I would guess that the top propagates down to all of the nested solutions. The nested solutions are a situation that don't come up a ton. So I only use them on that one project, maybe one other project, and I haven't been back, anyways, I haven't messed around with them a ton since then. Okay, so other fairly new feature is this build configurations thing. So anybody that has used Visual Studio for builds, it's an idea that I stole from them. So on this drop down here, you have debug and release. And so each of these solution items has a different configuration based on if we're on whatever build configuration we're on. So you can see that when we're on the release build, these things get built without the debug flag in them, and the package here gets built. But when I flip over to the debug, the PPL gets built with the debug flag enabled, the application gets built with the flag enabled, and these guys get skipped. So I can come in here and I can manage all of this stuff. I can duplicate, for example, I can duplicate that one and call it for testing. Okay, and then in the for testing here, now we build all of this stuff, or we can disable just the package, for example. And so, yeah, you can go crazy with your as many build configurations as you want. Ooh, I missed it. Bam, done. Okay. All right. So those are the main features of Solution Explorer. And like I said, those have existed for, I don't know, 2-3 years at this point. And hopefully you've seen a previous presentation of that. Hopefully you've checked it out. If you haven't, you should. All right, so the next level on top of that is the CLI. The CLI has actually always been there, or almost always been there. And I just haven't done a very good job of writing documentation for it or giving presentations out. So this is really the first presentation where I'm going to go into details about the CLI, but it's something that I've been using for at least, I don't know, a year or two. So the CLI is really just a way to launch Solution Explorer builds from the command line. When you do that, it's going to CMD. All right. Ooh, I should have done a little bit more prep here. So I got to do this. MGI Solution Explorer. All right. I'm just going to copy that path. All right. So if I type in this, or looking like a noob here, guys. Sorry. Presentations, demo. Let's go here. All right, so I'm gonna just change my working directory to that folder. Then I'm gonna say Solution Explorer command line. See if I can get this right on the first go. and we're going to say CLI Build, and then we're going to give it the path to the solution, which I think is called that. And then we should be able to just hit enter. And it's going to launch Solution Explorer in the background. It's going to do the exact same thing that it did when we hit that play button from the GUI. It's just got this little different UI here, and instead of popping up that window and writing all the stuff there, it's writing all the same information to the command prompt here. Build completed successfully. Now, if I want to run the debug build configuration instead, I don't remember what I did before. Oh, I did the debug before, so we'll do the release. If I don't specify it, I think it just assumes the first one, which in that case was the debug. If I want to do the release build configuration, I can type space release, and now it's going to do the same build, but using the release build configuration. Okay, so that's how you do your basic building. On top of that, or in addition to that, we can also have this dash version flag. And the dash version flag is how you specify from the command line what version you want of all of those things to build. So if we run the exact same command, oh, boom, completed successfully. I'm going to run the exact same command, but I'm going to say dash version, and I'm going to say 1.2.3.4. I'm going to switch back to debug here, though, because I think that one builds a little faster. Boom, initializing build. Do your thing. Yeah, okay. And I'll just pull up the builds here, and we'll have a sweet little proof here. If I right click on this and I go properties, what is it? It's details. Yeah, 1.2.3.4. So we're stoked about that. And then the other nice thing that you can do there is you can use the x dot whatever. And if you put an X in there for the build number, can you please set a larger font? Sorry. I honestly don't know how to do that. If I go properties, cursor size large, is there a white font? Give me 3016 is a bit much. Let's go 24. There we go. That's better, maybe. So exact same command. We're doing version. We're doing x.x.3.4, and what that does is it instead of setting the command, or sorry, the version from the command line, you're essentially saying use whatever is saved in the file, and then for the other one, set it specifically to 3 and specifically to 4. So you'll see when we get, or our next step when we're talking CI stuff, we're going to use that. So blam. Now we've got all that stuff figured out. All right. So now we've got all of the core bits. And so now we're going to talk about the CI part. So step 1 is set up the solution. Step 2, build agent. Step 3, the build script. All right. So set up the solution. Boom. We're already done. Literally the exact same thing. Anytime you're messing with your solution, all this sort of stuff, you're doing it exactly the same as you would from the UI here. You drag and drop, you save, you commit it to source code control, all that kind of stuff. In the future, you're managing all this stuff. Personally, the way I do it is we'll talk about version numbers in a minute. But yeah, moral story is you have a nice graphical interface for managing what stuff gets built as you're building it. Next thing you need to do is set up your build agent. So your build agent is the machine that, let me make this, we'll do this a little bit. Your build agent is the machine that is actually going to run the build So depending on what build helper version you're going to use, setting up the build agent will be a little bit different, but essentially you pick a machine, you install Windows on it, you install LabVIEW on it, you do your license activation, all that sort of stuff on that machine, and then you install this other application that is the thing that kind of talks to source code control and do all this stuff. So a lot of people have used Jenkins. Jenkins is kind of its standalone little thing, and it'll go ahead and talk to GitLab or GitHub or SVN, or it'll talk to kind of anything. And then that is going to run a bunch of command line commands on the build agent. The example that I'm doing here is I'm going to use GitHub Actions to do this. I'd actually never used GitHub Actions before, and it took me, I don't know, a half hour to kind of set up this build agent. Like it probably takes longer to install LabVIEW than it does to kind of get the piping working of the build agent. So yeah, so this window that's right here, and I'm not going to make the font bigger because it doesn't matter a ton, but this is essentially the thing that is talking to source code, that's talking to GitHub, and waiting for stuff, or waiting for commits to happen. And then when a commit happens, this is the thing that's going to run the commands to do the build. When you're doing it, a lot of times it's kind of annoying to type the whole MGI space solution space explorer.exe space CLI blah 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 blah. So I'll usually create this MGI SLN exp.bat, and I'll add this bat to the system path variable. The system path variable, if you don't know, is the thing that makes it so you can just type MGI SLN Explorer from any command prompt, and it knows to run Solution Explorer. Whereas in the example I showed you before, I had to type the full path of the exe. And this is just a little helper bat file that I installed in the path of my build agent. All right. So now the build agent is set up. Next thing we need to do is set up the build script. And this is going to be something that's different for whatever kind of build infrastructure you're using. So if you're using Jenkins or GitHub Actions or GitLab, I think that's called GitLab CI. I don't remember what its branding is, but essentially, yeah, there's always some sort of syntax to specify. Like this is just kind of like getting everything ready. And then we're going to have this command here that is build MGI Solution Explorer. And this is literally the command that we were just talking about, right? So MGI Solution Explorer build a path to the solution file, the build configuration, and then we're going to use this dash version. And I'm going to do dash version x.x.x. So what that's going to do is use the first three, major, minor, what is it, patch, that are saved in the solution file. And then this last one, I'm going to use the environment variable that the CI infrastructure specifies for me. And so this one will change, or there's essentially a version of this variable in all of the different infrastructures. So in this one, it's the GitHub run number. So that's just a unique number that increments every time there's a new build. I'm trying to remember what the GitLab one was. I can't, but if you Google GitLab environment variables, you can find that one. I've got a project now in Azure DevOps. Theirs is something like build number or whatever, but you essentially can always do something similar to this. And then this is just publishing those artifacts. So now that I've got all of this in here, if we open up our very important project B, we're going to go ahead and open up this very complicated top level VI, and we're going to add insert string palette. Yeah. All right. Got some sweet code here. Run. Cool stuff. Yeah. All right. It's really awkward when I'm doing this like for myself instead of like usually there's a crowd rolling laughing.
I can
All
start.
right, so we save. What was that?
I can start cutting in with laughter if it helps.
Perfect. Yeah, we need a laugh track. Next time I do this, I need to get a laugh track ready to go and have all my buttons like a morning radio guy. All right, so I've arbitrarily changed my files here. All right, I'll hit stage all and I'll say cool demo stuff. And I commit this now. Now I'm gonna just pull this up and probably, this is too big. This is too big. I'm gonna go for it. We're going full screen. So maybe you'll see it picked up. Ooh, that was easy. It picked up a build there, and if I look at my what's it called, LabVIEW's up, and it's doing some stuff, but it's a little bit more interesting if let's look at it in GitHub. Sorry, I didn't have this. GitHub. Wham. Now if I go in actions here, this cool demo stuff that you notice, that was like the first line of the commit text, I think is how that gets picked. And when I go in, I can see the build. So that's the job that was executed. It did the checkout, and then it does the build MGI Solution Explorer. And it says building this with all this stuff. And then it goes, and if you cared to, you could read through all this text and be like, yep. Okay, yeah, that looks good. And then it uploads the items to the artifacts here. And so if I go and I hit open, if we look, for example, what project B is a little bit more helpful. So we can see that it generated this project B package with a version number of 0.1.0-16. And if we cared to go into the EXEs and all that kind of stuff, we would see they all had the same version number. So now when to manage my version number, because managing your version numbers is pretty important. It's definitely something you need to think about. So how do we do that in this situation? All we do is manage these first three numbers, and I usually go with the semver version specking. So that, I don't know if you've seen it, semver, they've got some good definitions for when you should change major, minor, and patch. And so I just manage those here. And when I'm done, I do a save, and then I commit that. And then my build infrastructure is the thing that manages that last build number. Stuff goes through, everything that gets generated always has a unique build number. And for the most part, I'm not in CLI, debug world, and all this kind of stuff. I'm just managing my solution in Solution Explorer. So I apologize. I don't know if I'm good on time or if I'm very fast, but we have lots of time for questions is what I'm getting at. And so if you want to type them in chat or something like that. But while hopefully people are asking very complicated questions, if you want to download stuff, there's some articles on the MGI website. Oh, no, that's not going to, so let's just highlight this. That have a lot of the background stuff for all the Solution Explorer things. It's a lot of the first kind of chunk of my presentation where I was explaining to you what Solution Explorer does. This whole article goes through all of that. MGI has a bunch of other cool open source stuff, so you should check that out as well. If you care to get to the Solution Explorer source code, if you wanted to, you might need it if you want to write a plugin. You can do that. It's hosted here on GitLab. It's an open source project, so if you find issues with it and you want to fix it, or you have feature requests or whatever, you can make issues here. You can pull down the code, make the fix for them, and be a good open source community member and push the changes to the repo. And then this presentation is hosted on the same GitHub repo. So I'm DETREPAN3, and it's the only repo I have in there. So you'll find it. And I'll also submit it to whoever, I don't know, to the event organizers so that it's hosted in the same spot as everybody else. So question there. Would this work with Azure DevOps CI solution? Yes, 100%. Like I said, it is essentially, it's just the layer, or the main thing that I was showing off here is just the layer that lets you run a LabVIEW build from a command line thing. And all of the CI stuff in the world, all the CI stuff really does is run a string of commands. So I know for sure it works with Azure DevOps CI because I'm using it with Azure DevOps CI. That's where at Microsoft our main code repository lives. Works great. GitHub Actions, I think, are either like the same thing or very similar to Azure DevOps CI stuff. I forgot what they call the brand. Is it just called CI? Whatever it is, yes, 100% it works. Sean Walpole, is it possible to do unit testing of code as part of the build? So yes, but I would say that experience probably could be nicer. So one, as a solution item, you can always have run a command. And so if your unit test framework supports like launching from a command line, you could do that. Two, it also supports running just a random VI. So if you have all, like if you're using Coria or something, and you have all of your, what's it called? All of your unit tests, there's like one VI that you can run to run the whole suite of tests. You could do that. Personally, I also wrote this other tool called Gpackage Manager. I'm going to plug it here, gpackage.io. And this is a tool for distributing packages using modern package distribution ideas. So part of that is there is a command that just installs all the packages. So that would be GPM space install. And it just takes like a blank system and gets it up into a system that you can run your code even with all the packages. So for example, one package I use on like every project is the JSON parser. So if I want to use the JSON parser in my project, I just GPM install it from my project. And then on the CI server, I would do a GPM install before I did the MGI Solution Explorer. And before I did the MGI Solution Explorer build. And so my goal for unit testing is to build some infrastructure into the kind of more GPM side of things that do all the unit testing for us. And I think that we can have a really slick unit test situation in that world. That said, that's a lot of work, and I don't know when I'll get to it. But if you want to use unit testing that you have existing right now in unit test JKI's unit test framework or Coria or whatever unit test situation you got, I would say run VI or the CLI one. Boom, do it that way. I did find that when building software on the target, it does not pick up FPGA build spec. I'm not sure if this is a general need. Yeah, the FPGA side of things with Solution Explorer is something that I think is almost there, but I haven't had the time to actually test it. So I'm curious. I'm pretty sure that, anyways, it's not officially supported, but it shouldn't actually be that much work to get it supported. I just haven't done it. All right. It sounds like Yin Hui. Sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. I think I've met you at and iWeeks and stuff. Anyways, he's done a bunch with Solution Explorer. I added a VI tester unit test plugin, and it runs before execute of the build spec. It works well. So you should either submit a thing on the Git repo. Sorry, you should do a pull request on the Git repo, and maybe send Matt Harrison at MGI an email. Matt might not be the right guy. I'm not 100% sure who at MGI is managing this now. And get that integrated into the official build of Solution Explorer, because that is something that would be sweet. Chris Stryker, is there a reason to do unit testing as part of the solution build rather than a different step in your pipeline? That's a little bit where I was getting to with the GPM stuff. Personally, I think unit testing should be in the, like when you type the command that's MGI Solution Explorer build, that's like a thing that is going to build. And then before that command as a separate command, you should, I ideally would like to have the run unit test. When you get more into the CI world, these things are all built to do massively parallelized building if possible. So what would be really slick is, sorry, I was reading the chat while I was trying to talk. Oh, sorry, the parallelized thing. Yeah. So in the situation where we had like 200 PPLs to build, all of these things are set up to be very parallelizable. So it'd be really slick to have like maybe 8 different build agents, and you set up your build script in a way so that the testing is a different thing than the building, and you have some of the agents that are just running all of the tests. And if the tests succeed, then they pass off the build part of it to another agent, and you get all of this kind of cool stuff happening in the background. That's the way a lot of other programming languages kind of manage this sort of thing. That's kind of in my mind also why I think I'm online, or I'm more in line with the thinking that Chris had, where unit testing is a separate thing, and the Solution Explorer is just the building. That said, I do like the fact where you could just push one button and it kind of like does everything. Tony, nice update on Solution Explorer. Since we have one, can you give us an interview related to what you've learned at Microsoft? A couple of references, any outlooks that can't be shared. I would say that my answer to that question is programming is programming. And I think that a lot of times in the LabVIEW world, it's kind of like people don't approach it like it's programming. They approach it like it's LabVIEW. And like, you know, like when I interviewed here at Microsoft, it wasn't like I was interviewing for LabVIEW. It was like I did the same interview process that a C# guy would have done. And you know, I'm talking to people who don't know really what LabVIEW is, but they know what programming is. And when you have a problem, figure out how programmers do it, and then just do that in LabVIEW. I don't know. All right, I still have 15 minutes here, guys. I'm happy to answer more questions. I'm happy to talk about GPM. I don't know, what else?
Held to take up more than 5 because it's supposed to be a 50-minute presentation.
Oh, perfect. All right, we have 5 more minutes of shenanigans here. Does it make sense to call Coria as a pre-build? I think that's not a bad idea. Sorry, Peter says, does it make sense to call Coria as a pre-build part of your thing? I think that's nice. The downside with if there's a Solution Explorer step to do your unit test, the kind of bad part about that is when you do that step, what's going to happen is it's going to load up your unit tests into memory. In the process of loading up your unit test, it's going to load up all of the code that you've generated. You know what I mean? Like it's got to load all of your VIs that it's going to test in the unit test situation. And then, so you're going to run your unit test. Let's say everything works great. All right, it generates, some files that you're going to archive with some artifacts and stuff. Now your when that Solution Explorer step is done, it's going to like close that VI, and that's going to close all of those references. And then the next thing that's going to happen is we're going to open up your LabVIEW project to do the actual build, and it's going to reload all of those files into memory. So depending on how big your project is and how, I mean, I don't exactly know what affects load time, but it seems like the more classes you have, the slower it loads and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, my projects, for example, I've got a project now that takes an hour to actually like build. Like once the build starts, it goes. So that means opening the project is, I don't know, 5 minutes, a handful of minutes, more than a trivial amount of time. And so, yeah, it's a CI system, so I don't care a ton about how long build times are. But at the same time, I'd like to reduce build times. So if I'm opening and loading stuff into memory extra times, I'm less stoked about that. So that's a whole big roundabout way of saying, if you put your pre-build step, or sorry, if you do your Coria build as a pre-build step, I think, I'm not 100% sure because it might be in a different application instance, but I think you get around some of this loading it twice situation. Not 100% sure. But that's the world that I would like to be in. Jonathan Lindsay. Good point. Sorry, Peter said, good point. So as long as it bails when a fail occurs. That's up to you, man. You're right in the pre-build step. You can make it fail or not. Jonathan Lindsay, just curious, what kind of projects does Microsoft use LabVIEW for? So I'm actually not very good at knowing what I'm allowed to talk about and what I'm not allowed to talk about. And that being said, it's not like it's like top secret. We're not working on fighter jets. But basically, it's a really distributed CRIO based project to measure some stuff in data centers. And so, yeah, we have a bunch of CRIO code that we're running. We have a bunch of CRIOs that we're running. And then we have a Windows application to kind of manage all of it. So, I came from the consulting world with MGI, and yeah, it's the same old LabVIEW project that, or it's not drastically different than a bunch of LabVIEW projects that I did working in biomedical stuff or aerospace or whatever. But it's cool. So that is all my time. Sorry, I came up a little, or it was a little quick. So yeah, you should check out Solution Explorer. Like I said, it's really easy because it installs with LabVIEW. If you just go on NI Package Manager, you say install LabVIEW, it'll say, do you want to also install this stuff? And one of the things in that list is Solution Explorer. You should also check out G Package Manager. There's a bunch of stuff on there. The Compose Systems guys are super into it. I still use it all the time for a bunch of projects, or a bunch of stuff at Microsoft here. And it is super compatible with all the CI world of things. So that's it. Thanks, guys. Folks, sorry.
No, I say thanks for the presentation. And my favorite feature is definitely the auto build of self-extracting zips.
Yeah, self-extracting zips make your life, if you're dealing with clients who are not particularly good at computers, the self-extracting zips are really nice. And so a lot of times in the CI world, what I was doing was like if I pull up this, I'll archive the stuff, and then I'll automatically, and then the next step after that will be like upload it to an AWS bucket or an Azure container, or some sort of web storage thing that my client has access to. And then they can just have a list of every single exe or every single self-extracting version forever. And then the CI kind of like manages all that stuff. And I never get into a situation where I get a call from a customer and they're like, hey, I need that version of that software that I haven't asked you about in 6 months. And I go, I don't remember where that is, right? It's like, it's always in the spot. No big deal.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody head over to the main stage breakout session for a lava barbecue style joke fest with Matt Pollock and Norm Kirchner. It's going to be great.